President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, says the bloc is supporting Africa in boosting its food production capacity. After accusing Russia of using hunger and grain to wield power, von der Leyen insisted that global cooperation is the antidote to the blackmail. This is as the World Economic Forum's annual meeting resumed on Tuesday with business leaders, government officials, and representatives from global institutions gathered at the Congress Center located in the Swiss Alps. The second day's agenda was packed with sessions on the meeting's key theme of climate change. Arise international correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya reports.
If the weather in Davos didn't know any better, it might have thought it was the red-hot rage against Russia's invasion in Ukraine that melted the traditional snowy scenes at the World Economic Forum in Davos. But this year's edition, taking place in the spring, did little to thaw a frosty agenda that saw Ukraine at the centre of many discussions. The European Union, in its historic offer of 10 billion euros of macro-financial assistance to Ukraine, made its largest package offer to a third country on record.
We're mobilizing our full economic power. Our sanctions and the self-sanctionings of companies themselves are draining Russia's economy and thus draining the Kremlin's war machine.
But Russia is flexing the muscle it still has. Ukraine has accused Moscow of blocking the embattled country from exporting 22 million tons of its wheat and sunflower seeds, triggering a global food crisis.
Global wheat prices are skyrocketing, and it's the fragile countries and vulnerable populations that suffer the most. Bread prices in Lebanon have increased by 70%. And food shipments from Odessa could not reach Somalia. And on top of this, Russia is now hoarding its own food exports as a form of blackmail, holding back supplies to increase global prices or trading wheat in exchange for political support.
In response, the European Commission says Europe is working hard to ease the grain strain by stepping up its own activity and supporting African countries to boost their own production capacity. Africa is the youngest and fastest growing continent. By 2035, more young Africans will enter the workforce each year than in the rest of the world combined, which brings huge opportunities, but major challenges too. That's also true of the climate change crisis.
We can meet this crisis and meet the crisis of Ukraine and the energy crisis of Europe and still deal, as we must, with the climate crisis. And no one should believe that the crisis of Ukraine is an excuse to suddenly build out the old kind of infrastructure that we had. We have to be more creative than that. We have to be much smarter than that. Given the stakes.
Well, Wednesday marks the third day of this 2022 edition of the World Economic Forum's annual meetings. And just like the previous days, we are expecting that Russia will continue to be a topic of conversation, Ukraine too, and of course geopolitical tensions across the world, energy crises, food crises, and then of course there is the topic of the environment. All of that happening at the World Economic Forum. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News at the World Economic Forum, Davos.
Well, for more updates on the World Economic Forum activities, Arise international correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya, who is in Davos, Switzerland, joins us now. Good morning, Adefemi.
Hello, Adefemi. Can you hear us from here?
Good morning to you all.
Yes, first time I'm seeing you since your Nieman Fellowship. Congratulations.
I can,
really
very loud
great.
And clear.
Really excited for you. Now, okay, trade is on the agenda at today's meetings. The Director General of the WTO, our own Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, will be giving a speech. What can we expect?
Thank you, Dr. Rubin. Good morning to you all. But yes, the Director General of the World Trade Organization will be speaking. This will be her second appearance. She did have a talk yesterday, and today that will continue talking about not only Africa and what the continent can expect are ways in which the global recovery along the lines of trade can work for the betterment of the world. There have been a huge chain of causes for concern lately, that being, of course, the war in Russia, different crises over different sectors, and that's obviously had a knock-on effects on global trade and put trade in a different light. So we are expecting the Director General to talk about those things, uncover different ideas and opportunities for trade. And we are hoping that on Thursday she will have a sit-down exclusive with Arise, fingers crossed, so that she can speak to us in a bit more detail about what we can expect as the World Economic Forum draws to a close tomorrow.
Well, Adefemi, NATO has called for more international behavior when looking at global trade in light of recent events, including the Russian invasion of Ukraine. What does that mean?
Exactly. Well, Jens Stoltenberg, who is the Secretary General of NATO, said that the world needed to be more intentional when it comes to global trade. He said that freedom is more important than free trade, and that is that Mexico has decided to turn its gas taps off to countries like Finland, for example, and it's believed that the energy crisis that the world is facing is because of an over-reliance on Russia and countries like that. So if we look at that one example, there's also going to be the issues of technology, for example, 5G and the causes for concern therein. So what NATO is trying to call on global leaders to do is just to think more about healthier and safer ways, more secure ways to exhibit trade rather than the easier options, which could have catastrophic ramifications, which is what we're seeing with this energy crisis in Russia and any type of harsher relations with China, for example.
Right. Something that is also touring, as Davos is touring, it's quite a funny time to be in Davos now, is the global food crisis. Recently, a lot of indices, the Chicago Index was talking about increasing food prices. There's been another cause for concern at the WEF this year. And there have been, plans about how to tackle that. You've got anything unsealed for us as regards that?
Without a doubt, the food crisis has been a huge topic of discussion throughout the meetings here in Davos. And if we look at the European Union, for example, we did have Ursula von der Leyen, who is the president of the European Commission, first and foremost call out Russia and say that Russia was taking food hostage and using it as a blackmail tool to hold the rest of the world to hostage. And that's because Russia, with its presence in the Black Sea, has stopped the exports from Ukraine of sunflower seeds and other food products reaching the international market, and that's having huge ramifications on countries across the world, Somalia included, as you heard in the report. So what the European Union are doing is, what they've said is that they themselves as a bloc are going to be focusing on ramping up their own food production capacity and supporting other countries, African countries, to do the same, so that it would stem the real blowback of what we're seeing with Russia's, as many people have called, using food as a weapon of war. So it's not too clear at this point in what ways African countries will be supported, whether it's through finance or any type of other material support, but that is what the plan is according to the European Commission, and it's something that they say is going to begin sooner rather than later in light of the current situation.
Okay, well, let me ask you, I know earlier on we referred to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who will be speaking in her capacity as Director General of the World Trade Organization. But are there any other Nigerian voices at the meetings today? Who and who have you seen from Nigeria around the place? And what are they doing?
Well, thank you, Dr. Ruben. In terms of who my eyes have seen, it has only been Dr. Okonjo-Iweala. I saw her yesterday and we discussed us meeting and sitting down for an interview, which we're expecting to happen tomorrow, but we're hoping also to cross paths with her during her discussion on stage. But we are also expecting the arrival of the Nigerian Finance Minister, Zainab Ahmed, who will be participating in a talk on Thursday being the last day of these World Economic Forum annual meetings here in Davos. But also we are hearing that the Central Bank Governor of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, is around and will be making an appearance shortly. So my eyes have been open. I've been seeing lots of different faces, not many Nigerian faces, but quite a few public figures walking around here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Adefemi Akinsanya.